So thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. To get us started, I know about you. I have read your books and your stories, but would you mind giving a quick introduction?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And in fact, something that is not in the books, I don't think I've ever written it down, but I've mentioned it in my presentations, is that I started in clinical medicine, obstetrics, gynecology, and pediatrics. So when I left there and was trying to figure out what to do, I went to Spain and I worked as a bottle juggling cocktail barman, like Tom Cruise in the movie. And was pretty happy there. It was a small place in Malaga, Spain, Arroyo de la Miel, Spanish for river of honey. And then on my days off, there weren't many, I sat on the beach and local kids from the village would come round and they would teach me some Spanish and I would teach them some English. And then one day I got a visit from a couple of British people. And they said, "Oh, we hear you've been giving free English lessons." I said, "Well, not really. I'm not qualified, but I don't have much to do in my day off. I don't have any money. I can't go anywhere." And they said, "Could you please stop?" And I said, what?" They said, "We do this for a living and you're giving it away for free." I was like, "You can do this for a living? That's amazing." So I left Malaga, Spain, Arroyo de la Miel, came back to England and did my very first distance courses. And this is so long ago, you literally posted your assignments in a mailbox and you wrote it by hand. So that is how I left a very prestigious and well-funded medical scholarship and ended up in Spain and then ended up back in England starting really all over again in my late 20s. My whole future was mapped out. As you know, many immigrants have their future mapped out by their parents, and mine were the same. But so that isn't written down anywhere. So yeah, good opening question.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's already a fascinating story. So you didn't like medicine. That's why you wanted to shift your career, or?
Again, when I went into healthcare, which was decades ago, we spent a lot of time on the wards with pediatrics and the different disciplines, obstetrics, gynecology, and pediatrics. We were on the ward all the time with kids, with babies, with new mothers, and then it became extremely automated. And then we spent all our time in the laboratories. And that was not why I went into healthcare. It was to help people, not just feed their fluid samples into a massive machine. I also had some experiences, a terminal cancer ward for children, a burns unit, and I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't strong enough, and my colleagues were like, "You'll get used to it," and I was like, "No, this is stuff I don't want to ever get used to." So those were some of the reasons.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And could you describe your involvement in TESOL? I know it's a long involvement for sure.
My involvement with TESOL started with Professor Kathy Bailey, who came to Hong Kong. I'd never heard of I'd heard of IATEFL because when I was doing my PhD in England, they came to our university, and I'd never seen so many English teachers or teachers of English to speakers of other languages. So I knew IATEFL. I've been in IATEFL for as long as I've been in TESOL or longer. So when Kathy came to Hong Kong with her dearly departed partner, Les Sambo, she was there for a year as a visiting prof. And by the end of the year, most of the people who knew her had become members of TESOL International. And then she and David Noonan kept pressing me to join the leadership mentoring program. And I applied and I was rejected. And that was that. But if you know, Kathy, that was not an option. Giving up is not an option. So she kept on at me. And so I joined and then later got to be one of the first people ever to have the LMP award about more than 20 years ago. So that's my beginning. that covers a couple of questions. Well, that was really, what does TESOL mean to you when you started? My
Yeah.
involvement in TESOL is 30 years of committees and subcommittees and task forces and affiliates. I believe I've served on, at the time, because of Kathy Bailey, every time a committee position came up, she put me forward for it, which was a very intense few years, especially as I was in Hong Kong and it's such a US-based office. But I learned so much from being on so many committees, subcommittees, and task forces, many of which don't even exist anymore. So that involvement led me from first year LMP mentee to the 50th presidency a few years ago.
Is there any committee that stood out to you, that stands out?
Well, I first was a member of what is now a caucus. It was a caucus, which was BELPAF, Black English Language Professionals and Friends. And I was always F, not Black. Never said I was, although some TESOL leaders seem to feel very strongly about having a Black president. And when my name comes up, they're like, yeah, well, he wasn't Black. So there's still some issues. First brown president, first president of my origins, first post-colonial Anglo-Indo-Afro-Caribbean Pacific president in history. So we got to tick a lot of boxes, although I know some people seem to feel I should have been Blacker than I am, which is a rather weird position to take. But that was the first 30 years. And so that's a very brief summary of 30 years of my involvement in TESOL, which is still going on.
Yeah.
I believe I've written articles for every single newsletter. Involvement at all levels, was a member of every caucus, every intersection. I've dialed all that back. But I was involved in everything all the time at all levels.
Yeah. What were you trying to accomplish when you served as president of TESOL?
One of the guiding principles for me in leadership has always been leave the organization or the institution or the department or faculty in better shape than you found it. Make it better in some ways, whatever you can do to make the organization better when you leave it than it was when you found it. This is one of the things that's guided my leadership work for, again, more than 2 decades. So that was the big goal, was leaving it in better shape. Now, better shape, as you know, means different things to different presidents. I was the 50th president. And when I give talks and lectures and interviews, people say to me, as you said, is it former president or past president? And my branding, and you know more about this than me, is 50th president. There is only one 50th president.
Makes sense.
So,
we should
so the branding is like, please introduce me as the 50th president, which upsets 49 other presidents, but I don't care.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, you know, the usual things, but the 50th year was an incredibly busy year. We did some things the association had never done before. Our first official collaboration in Vietnam, our first official collaboration in India from an Indian ancestor president. So, and David Noonan, if you've interviewed David, or you will, he may remember telling all of us young people that going into leadership, you think you will get to work on these issues. That's why you become a leader, but you don't get to pick the issues. The issues pick you. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I've learned so much from that generation of presidents, which was Kathy and David. And then the next big generation for me was people like Jun Liu, the first Asian president, the first Chinese president, and so on. And now Jun Liu is my boss in Macau. So that's the short-ish answer to what was I trying to accomplish. Everything that every president tries to accomplish, grow the membership and grow the funding. But then every single presidency has issues that they didn't think would hit them. And boy, oh boy, do they hit you. You think your year as president-elect really prepares you for it, and it does not at all. I'm honored and privileged and humbled to have known most of the past presidents over the 30 years, and they will all tell you or have told you it doesn't prepare you, because the issues are just different day to day, moment to moment, and certainly year to year.
Yeah. What issues picked you that kind of still stand?
One One was one of the biggest reorganizations of the organization in its history, all levels, particularly the standing committees, the old standing committees. You're probably too young to remember them, but at every level, from the administrative staff in the office in DC through to every intersection, every caucus, they're all now, I think some of them are professional learning networks. They are PLNs now. So all of what you're seeing now, the association looks today, that enormous reorganization started my year.
I see.
So the issues of how are we going to survive? Now, this was before COVID, but the 50th year, and I'm giving a plenary in Mexico in a couple of weeks because it's their 50th anniversary of TESOL.
Yes,
and they're like, we would love the 50th president to be at our 50th anniversary. So I'm doing a lot of reflecting on the 50 years. So sorry to not be more specific, but everything from funding, membership, hiring, firing, changing the organization in response to an enormous amount of feedback that we were given, and meeting the massive resistance to change. I'd be surprised if every president doesn't mention resistance to change. There was so much of it during my 3 years in that role.
Now I'm able to imagine a little bit the issues that you had to address during that time. Interestingly, maybe I haven't heard resistance to change, but I have heard from a few presidents about your comment about the issues picked you.
Oh, good. I believe David was the original one. And part of my work in change management, which goes back a long way, is that if you're not meeting resistance to change, if everybody's agreeing and going along with you, you're not doing it right. But that was more resistance than I had ever encountered because of 50 years of the association. I should say about some of the benefits, really. And the main benefits were, to make a very long story as short as possible, getting to work with people like Kathy, with David, with June, and frankly, 20 to 25 years of TESOL leaders, some of whom I clashed with, all of whom I learned from.
Thank you. So I think you have talked about the challenges. I did ask, and you just addressed the benefits of serving as president, the connections that you made. So I'm going to move on to the next question. Maybe I should ask question 7 first. I didn't have this question initially, but I was advised to add it because there were comments about, like, when people are on the board, they are too focused on the day-to-day tasks rather than really understanding their role of steering the organization and looking into a longer future. So my question 7 is in that context, that what is your view on the role of the board of director and people who serve on it?
Yes, old school paper, so I don't have to keep looking around at other screens. The view on the role of the board. I was a very polarizing president, as some people may have said. Many of the board members who are lifetime professional academics really didn't like the way I did things. The administrative support staff really liked me because I would do very unpopular things like tell them how much this board meeting cost to bring everybody from around the world and put them in hotels and feed them. So the last 30 minutes that we just spent on discussing where to put the damn semicolon, because that's what a room full of professional PhDs in language will do. They'll spend 30 minutes discussing where to put the semicolon. Should it be a colon? Should it be a period? What about a semicolon? That stuff just drove me nuts. Because we were spending so much of the members' money on that board meeting. This is before online meetings. So to some extent, the role of the board is to get out of the way and let the people who need to do what they do stop getting in the way with your semicolons. So that's one thing, is the board does get, because they're a room full of professional academics who in many cases have never left university, undergraduate, graduate, master's, doctorate. I've spent many years in many different jobs. So I know how organizations that are not universities run, like you. You've got a successful business. You don't run it like a university because you'd be bankrupt. Universities are terrible, terrible organizations for teaching, for learning, for money. My current research is in what's the point of universities. That's what I'm presenting, publishing, researching, and writing. Why bother having universities anymore? So the board and is stop getting hung up on the small things, and please, I beg you, keep an eye on the big picture.
Yeah, so I have heard that advice as well from different presidents, but it seems like it's still a point that needs emphasizing, because maybe sometimes
every board, every year, someone should give them a talk on the big picture.
Yeah. So that is also interesting to me personally, because I tend to think of myself as sometimes caught in doing the work rather than maybe envisioning the far future. I'm still thinking about that. I like getting things done, and I get my hands dirty in things and make sure things are done. So it's good to hear from a lot of you about keeping the big picture in mind as well. But maybe that is kind of a progression, right, in terms of leadership.
When you become the first president of TESOL International Association of Vietnamese Origin, which I fully expect you to do at some point, you can remember this conversation and you can play this part of the tape back to them. And this is the 50th president ranting on about keeping an eye on the big picture. Do I have to tell you every meeting? There were times it's like every meeting within just the first item on the agenda, we were lost for the day. So I got unpopular because I wouldn't just put times, I would put when this item is starting and when this item is finishing. Every single agenda item had a start time and a finish time. They hated that. Professional academics have never seen that before. They will just talk until they've written a book or published a paper, whatever.
Yeah, so I'll keep this in mind. So what do you see as the future of TESOL? Basically, where are we going and what changes do you foresee?
It's great that you talked to Joyce, because if you saw me get my Lifetime Achievement Award, my Elatus Award, I don't know if you saw that, but that Joyce has been not continuously, but on and off, and certainly now, as big an influence in my life as a TESOLer as Kathy, probably the only other person in my life, including family, friends, wives, whatever, children, grandchildren now, was Joyce. And I need to talk to her soon, because it looks to me like the association is hurting. The My TESOL rollout that they've spent so many years and so much time and so much money. You've seen the results of the My TESOL rollout.
Yeah, I put out some thoughts into social media about how difficult it is to engage people in this kind of forum, which I actually see other more flourishing platform in other organizations. They do go there to share technical knowledge.
They're hurting, and it hurts me. It actually hurts my heart to see that the My TESOL rollout, the biggest thing I've seen is nobody signs up for intersections anymore. There were intersections that had nearly 1,000, and now they have like a few hundred. Yeah. No, not even a few hundred. Are there some that have a few hundred? Which ones?
Yeah, there are like I saw some at a few hundred, maybe applied linguistics or something like that. Yeah.
So technology has just been this never-ending problem, and we thought this would finally fix it. Again, almost every president you will talk to over decades of leadership, I hope, will mention, oh yeah, the technology, our members were always complaining. They want more, they want better, they want it all to be free, and it can't be, and everything. So it pains me to see that, as I will believe you if you tell me that the My TESOL rollout was a great success, but I don't get that feeling at all. I don't.
Maybe people will sign up more close to the conference, or maybe we need to do that during the conference.
Speaking of the conference, you will no doubt know about the massive furore surrounding Tampa, Florida in TESOL 2024.
Yeah.
Now, I still have my sources, so don't quote me on this, but my understanding is that although a lot of members in America, in the USA, are not going because of
that's true. Some states actually are not going to pay if they are a state university employee. They are not going to get paid to go to certain states.
That's what I've been hearing. The irony is, and you again may know more about this than me, is that members coming from other countries don't care. They don't, I'm back in Asia and nobody cares that the US is on the permanent verge of bankruptcy because there's, the debt ceiling limit or any of that stuff. We're in Asia, we're in Macau and Hong Kong. They have the Communist Party of China, they have North Korea, they have bigger things to worry about than Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. Right. So my understanding is that although very large numbers, including some TESOLers, have been going for decades and not going this year, I am, but I'm not presenting. That is my way of supporting members in Florida without talking about diversity and inclusion in a context in which that is the leaders are trying to destroy notions of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
So the conference looks like being highly problematic.
Yeah.
Although, interestingly, international enrollment is very high, I understand. Thanks to the State Department, for the first time in our history, we can claim to have more non-US members than US members. Right. That's only because the State Department and Donald Trump isn't there anymore. So without them, I think they're providing millions of US dollars of funding for people to attend online, for example.
That's right.
Because instead of sending one person from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which costs, 5,000-10,000 US, they get to send 100 people. So the future of TESOL, where are we going? What changes? I have a bad feeling, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on this, but I have a bad feeling that the face-to-face conference is going to get more and more squeezed and shorter and shorter and more expensive. So that unless your institution is paying, I've been paying thousands of US dollars out of my pocket for years to attend. I work pro bono. I've been working for pro bono for 12 years. I could have literally earned hundreds of thousands of US dollars in that time, but I haven't earned a penny. And I've given all my speaking fees away, which is more than 50,000 US dollars.
Yeah.
So it hurts me financially to go, but I'm going to keep going. But I think a lot of people are not. So I see the future as, for better and for worse, moving away from the face-to-face. That will become the niche. And the online will be the big one, which is a reversal of years ago when the online was the smaller niche market and everybody wanted to go in person.
Yeah.
So I see, ironically, the face-to-face convention staying with us, getting shorter, having more international attendees than Americans for the first time in our history, and the big gig being the online version.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the big changes. There are more changes, but I don't know how much time you and your lovely daughter have.
So a lot of challenges and changes for sure. And I guess we just have to adapt. And I see new things coming out also of TESOL, like the Elevate conference is online. I think.
That's doing well. I believe that's doing very well. Some of the new publishing initiatives, the 6 principles, seems to really do well. So the association, in my opinion, has always done good work. And I get fiercely defensive when people who don't know the association decide to criticize it. They're struggling. The future, I think, is going to be enormously challenging for any 55-year-old organization or 60-year-old organization. How do you attract young members? Because your old members are dying and retiring and just passing on and passing away. So like all highly successful very old associations, people have gotten so used to getting everything free on the internet. How do you get them to pay for anything? And if they won't pay for anything, membership, dues, or conference registration, then how do you pay for things? So the biggest challenges in the future will be the same as they have been in the past. Technology, finance, the impact of artificial intelligence on language education. To me, the challenges don't change. It's the nature of the challenges that change.
Right. Yeah.
But essentially, they kind of remain the same.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
Everybody
point.
talks about new challenges. Well, no, actually, they're manifesting in a different way.
Right.
But they're no different to the challenges people were telling me about 30 years ago in the association, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm writing that down. The nature of the challenges changes, but the challenges don't change.
Not fundamentally, and many presidents would disagree with me, but I've been in leadership for more than 2 decades. So that's something that sounds so obvious when you say it, but I've never seen anybody write it down.
Yeah, so you have given me a lot of advice throughout the conversation. I already took notes of some, and I still remember the conversation that I had with you last year in Pittsburgh. And also when you gave a presentation about your leadership with your book. So I still remember. But anyway, my last question is, any advice for leaders, aspiring leaders like me and others?
Firstly, thank you so much for giving your time and expertise to the association whilst having a family, whilst running a business. You know, these are very hard things to do all at the same time, and you do seem to do them all extremely well. I don't know how you do, but thank you so much for you being you and doing what you do on behalf of the field and the association. It's just blows me away, really. I'm so impressed. And when I say the first president of the Association of Vietnamese Origin, I'm not dicking around. I can't see any reason why you wouldn't be, except for this. In terms of advice for aspiring leaders like you. And you're not aspiring, you are aspiring presidents, but you're definitely a leader. There's no doubt in my mind. The first time I ever met you with your daughters under the table and whilst you were with some friends, I was like, yeah, that's a future president right there.
Thank you
really
for the encouragement.
So the advice is, firstly, you are a leader. But to take on more leadership, and most past presidents who've been mentored by me know this, the killer question is, what are you not going to do? Because you can't just keep taking on. You know, the old English expression is, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. But I worry about people who have taken on so much, family and living and working in a different country, and raising, I don't know, mixed race children, whatever it is that makes life challenging and interesting and important. And then on top of that, you run a company, and then on top of that, you do all this great stuff with TESOL. And my biggest advice to anyone in your situation is, please be as clear as you can about what you're going to not do or stop doing, so that you can be a good leader without burning out and crashing the way so many of us have done, myself included. Nobody gave me that advice. Nobody said to me, that's great, you're taking this on. And one of the reasons I became very unpopular as a president with the boards was I would say, there's 7 great initiatives. We have 23 that we're working on. Can you tell me which 7 or 10 we're going to stop? Because this is not sustainable. We just cannot keep taking on more initiatives without more money, more people, more time. So that applied to the association, and that has applied to my life and work, because no one told me that, and I came crashing down. It was just a terrible, terrible time. Aspiring presidents, because you're not an aspiring leader, but for aspiring future presidents or whatever you want to be, just keep being you. Don't let people tell you should be someone else, because people have been telling me that my whole goddamn life. You shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't care so much. You shouldn't get so passionate. You shouldn't feel so strongly. No, screw them. Sorry, pardon my French. Leaders become leaders because of who they are, what they care about. But leaders often stop being leaders because they're crushed, because they just didn't say no to stuff. They collapse and burn out. There's this terrible fourth. It's very well recognized, extremely well recognized in the business world, not in our world, not in the TESOL world.
Yeah, that's great advice, because I've been thinking about it as well. And I do know that I have to work smarter and be more strategic, because like I say, sometimes I do things because I feel like doing it. I'm capable of doing it. I like getting things done, but then maybe I'm not strategic about what I choose to do and what not to do. So definitely great advice. And I don't know how I can go about doing things differently, but maybe
just say no. The worst anti-drug campaign in the history of America was Nancy Reagan and her very silly "just say no to drugs" campaign. Very Republican, very Reagan, but she was right, not about drugs.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that's my last question, and I think that's great advice for me, great food for thought. And I think I'm getting better at this in terms of strategizing and being strategic as well, networking and things like that, because honestly, I haven't done it so much. But thank you so much. It's so interesting to hear your stories and also the insights that you have.
I'm sorry, can I just have one last quick word?
Yes.
To help you strategically. Many years ago, every time I buy an item of clothes, I give 2 away to charity. So I buy a new pair of pants, I give away 2 pants. That's how my closet doesn't get full. So for many years now, I have a rule. Everything I say yes to, lead chapter, plenary, keynote, I must have, and I will keep a written record for everything I say yes to, there must be 2 or more things that I have said no to.
Oh, that's a good rule that may really make a difference.
You're not at that stage yet. I'm old and near to death and, whatever. But do bear that in mind. If I've said yes to anything today, you can end the day as I do by saying, firstly, what good did I do in the world today? I've been doing a lot of philanthropic work, giving away. I haven't earned any money for 12 years, but I'm basically going to die broke because I have targets for myself to give money to charitable causes. Secondly, what did I say yes to today? And thirdly, and these really are 3 questions I think about before I fall asleep, what good did I do in the world today? What did I say yes to? What did I say no to? I'll leave that with you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.